Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be checking out some Viking horns. That's right. I got a prior request from Dolly, so shout out to you. This one's called the Golden Horns of Gallehus. Gallehus? I don't know how to pronounce that necessarily, but the original channel is Scaldin. I also don't know how to pronounce that, guys, so sorry about that. But you can find the links to the original video in the description section down below. Go check that out, and maybe if you can pronounce it better, good deal. Anyways, we're going to check this out. The Golden Horns of Gallehus. And it's about some Vikings. Whoops, I got to change my window capture to the right thing. Hey, we're ready. All right, cool. Let's do it. Golden. Okay, so this is like a whole production. Get my coffee. Okay. Denmark. Right? Yeah. It looks very Denmark to me. Would make sense because Dolly is Danish. So completely makes sense that it's Danish Vikings.
On the 20th of July in 1639, in the village of Gallehus, near the town of Møgeltønder, a poor Danish woman by the name of Kirsten Svensdatter was on her way into the town to sell her lace, when she suddenly
When was it? I missed it. I was messing with my desk. Sorry, guys.
On the 20th of July in 1639,
16.
in the village of Gallehus, near the town of Møgeltønder, a poor Danish woman by the name of Kirsten Svensdatter was on her way into the town to sell her lace, when she suddenly stumbled over something on the ground. At first, she thought it was just a tree root sticking out from the ground, but at a closer look, she could see there was something shining underneath the dirt. She reached out for it and pulled it out from the ground. She then sat down on the ground and started turning it around in her hands while brushing the dirt off. She then realized that she just discovered something extraordinary.
Why she looks so sad then? Look at that. She looks sad.
A long golden horn made out of solid gold that was worth more than she could ever dream of to make in her entire lifetime. She brought the golden horn home with her and wrote a letter to Christian IV, who was the king of Denmark. The Danish king owned all the rights to all the gold that was found in the soil in Denmark, something that is called Danefæ, a law that is actually still in effect today, but instead of the royal family receiving the fines, it has to be handed in to the government, who then hands out a reward based on the value of the objects.
Okay, I was getting ready to say something about, like, I didn't know if, did she get paid for it? Was she able to keep it? Was she got in trouble if she would have kept it and tried to sell it? Did she have to report it? So that definitely cleared that up for me.
Unfortunately for Kirsten, she was only given a skirt by the king as a reward. But I really hope...
Only given what?
She was only given a skirt by the king as a reward.
Screw it, I don't know what that is.
I really hope that this was one kind of remarkable skirt for this great find. And I do really think that the king should probably also have given her some silver coins as well. The horn was 75.8 centimeters long and weighed approximately 3.1 kilos. The horn consisted of 2 layers. On the inside, it was made of gold alloy that was mixed together with silver. And on the outside of the long horn, it was decorated with rings made of pure gold. On the upper 7 rings, the horn was decorated with figures of animals, humans, and other symbols. some of them were punched, while other figures were salted. On the 21st of April in 1734, and almost 100 years later, and just about 15 to 20 meters away from where the first golden horn was found, there was found a second horn by a man named Erik Lassen, who was out in the fields digging for clay. This golden horn was a bit shorter, but a little bit wider.
So did they put these monuments there in the 1600s when they found them? Because they look pretty old.
Than the other one that was discovered in 1639. Erik traveled to Schackenborg Castle and delivered the golden horn to the Jarl, who then gave him 200 rigsdaler as a reward. Rigsdaler was coins made from silver, and it was one of the several currencies that was used in Denmark until 1875. 200 rigsdaler was a lot of money in the 18th century. And to give you an idea how much it was, 200 rigsdaler was equivalent to about 800 to 900 days of work. Since all the gold
So 3 years' pay.
still technically belonged to the king, the horn was then delivered to Christiansborg Castle in Copenhagen. This short horn was 71.3 centimeters long, but it is estimated that the short horn could have had the same length as the long horn. This horn was a bit heavier and weighed approximately 3.7 kilos.
Okay, so if that one was estimated to possibly be the same length, then that means one of the rings must have fell off. Is that what they're thinking?
But we can never be certain. The horn was made from the same materials as the first one, and as I said, it is believed it used to have the same length as the first long horn. But this horn was probably damaged by the plowing through the years, and the missing piece has most likely been melted down a long time ago. This horn was divided into 5 rings, and within each of these 5 rings there were decorations with figures. In the top of the horn, unlike the other horn, it has a runic inscription that was written with the Elder Fulag runes.
You can tell that it was the same length, because look, it gets skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, right? Just like this one here. But see, it just stops. And you can see where it's pressed in, right here on this edge. You can see it just, you can almost see where it had one connected to it.
A runic language that was primarily used before the Viking Age. There's been made 2 translations of this.
So they said it was before the Vikings.
A runic language that was primarily used before the Viking Age.
Okay.
There's been made 2 translations of this. The first one is, I, Egest, son of Holt, made this horn. The second translation was made by Finn Rasmussen, and it reads, I, guest of the living, from Holt, the horn I have made. We are absolutely certain that this is not a Viking horn, since it was not.
I think this one makes more sense. The I, Legest, son of Holt, made the horn, because this one, I, guest of the living, from Holt, the horn I have made. I don't know. I think that this one seems to make more sense.
Absolutely certain that this is not a Viking horn, since it was not written with the younger Thudag, which was the runes that were used in the Viking Age.
So it's not a Viking horn. What kind of horn is it then?
But the inscription is written, as I said, with the Elder Thudag, and the depictions do also not fit within the Viking Age. The 2 golden horns have been dated to the early 5th century, which was the period in time that is known as the Germanic Iron Age. The archaeologists are convinced that these horns were made in Denmark, due to the technique of how the horns were made. And the ornaments have also been seen in other Nordic designs before. The inscription on the short horn also seems to indicate that it was made in the southwestern part of Denmark. It is possible that these horns were sacrificed to the gods in the 5th century, when a group of anglers immigrated from the southern parts of Jutland to the British Isles. We do not know what the horn's original use were, but by judging from their appearance, they could have been used in a religious context, and maybe they were also used by a jarl or a king during the Viking Age. However, if they were used as a drinking horn or as an instrument is something that we simply do not know for certain. The images on the horns can be linked to myths from the Mediterranean, as well as to Nordic myths, and perhaps also Celtic myths. These horns have been subjected to numerous attempts to interpret them. The interpretation of the images depends on three questions. Should the images be read as a coherent account from the mouthpiece? Does it describe a ceremony, or is it a story? And where in the picture rings does the text start? The first attempt to interpret the longhorn was made by the German professor Ole Worm in 1641, when he described the first golden horn in his book De Auro Cornum. When he described the first Ole Worm in 1641, when he described the first golden horn in his book De Auro Cornum. He was of the opinion that the longhorn was a war horn dating back to King Frode, and the images were an admonition to how the people should act in regards to each other. It probably goes without saying that he and many others looked at the depictions with a Christian mindset. The archaeologist J.J.R. Worsay
They probably weren't Christians back then, the 5th century, come on now.
Was of another opinion, and he wrote in 1880 that the depictions on the longhorn illustrated Helheim, which is the underworld in Norse mythology, and he speculated that they depicted the saga about Balder's death. The stars on the short horn represented, according to him, the houses in Asgard where Odin, Thor, and Freya lived.
Odin and Thor, okay, those are, yeah, I've heard of them. Those are definitely, I think, are they Norse gods too? I think the Greek mythology, has Odin and stuff too. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong.
In 1949, the Swede Lars Ivar Ringboms, who probably was high on meatballs at the time, were of the opinion that the images showed situations and performances from pagan party games. Thus, the images were to portray the great joy of the return of spring, where the people dressed up for a parade as they do at carnivals. In 1969, Willy Hartner, who was a historian of science in the city of Frankfurt in Germany, tried to decipher the two rows of images in the top of the segment of the longer horn.
You know, they said a little bit ago that it was that it might represent like the underworld, right, in the Norse mythology. So each ring, would that be like the layers of hell, right? Like, so the first layer you go here, second layer you go here, and like once you get to the pits, like the deepest parts of hell, this, it might be it.
And according to him, the figures should be translated into, "May I, the potion of this horn, bring help to the clan." It is difficult to say what exactly they illustrate, and there has been made many more interpretations than I care to list here. We should also be careful not to make guesses and read something into it.
Duh. Why would you do that?
An interpretation of the longhorn that was published in July 2017 by Finn Rasmussen has, in my eyes, the best explanation of what these images on the longhorn really are symbolizing. I won't go into details on all the symbols, but just the main ones, so you will be able to understand his interpretation of the longhorn.
And before that, why is this S different than this one, right? So this snake is going this way, and it's saying it's an S. This snake is going that way, and it's saying it's an S. But see down here, this snake, oh no, it is different than that one, huh? Okay, so this snake is the same as that one, and they're both O's. Why are these two different for S's? It's interesting.
If we start by looking at the figures at the top of the longhorn, we see two rows that have 12 figures each. According to Finn Rasmussen and Jens Juel Jensen, these figures are based on an old Germanic language, which is called Gothic. When we decipher the text, then it translates into the following: I am the immortal, I guide you.
Okay. Now, I don't understand how people get different translations. Like one says, I am the immortal, I guide you. The other person translated it to let the elixir, potion, whatever, from this horn bring good luck to the tribe or something similar. Vastly different translations there. So how do you independently get to this translation versus this translation? I mean, they both sound great, but they can't clearly both be true. So I don't understand how each one got to the translation that they got to, right?
According to Finn Rasmussen, it is essential to understand the inscription on the longhorn to be able to decipher the rest of the decoration on the horn. Finn Rasmussen also proposes that there is a difference between the upper and the lower figures. The upper illustrations are supposed to indicate the good and guide the man in the right direction in his life.
Okay, yeah.
And the figures beneath are indicating evil, shown with men in chains, which indicate what happens to those who choose to go down the evil path in life.
Okay.
The double snake represents an immortal and invisible spirit that is punctured in order to show its invisibility. This snake appears many times on the longhorn because it is observing man throughout life and guiding him on a path.
I was going to say, some of those are raised and then other ones are just kind of like punched, like connect the dots, kind of like just a bunch of dots that make up the image. Now, I was wondering earlier, you know, and this is, I mean, they're saying from the 5th century, right? It was found in the 1600s. How do you know somebody didn't add to it, right? So somebody might have had the horns with the raised imagery and they're like, oh, this is cool, but I think it'd look cool if we put a snake here. They didn't know how to do a raised image, so they're like, oh, well, maybe we'll just do this and we'll punch in the design of a snake. Somebody might have customized it along the way. Was those punched in designs original? Because it doesn't look like it was done by the same person. It looks like a child went through and just punched those other designs in. They're trying to like add to it or something is what it seems to me.
The rest of the figures on the rings should be read from the bottom of the horn and up. If we take a look at the depiction on ring 7.
Why would you start at the top and then assume, okay, we got to go to the bottom and then go up? Is there a reason for that? If there's not a reason for it, then I don't understand it.
We see a conception, which is symbolized with 2 human bones, which might be the bones of an ancestor who is going to be reborn. On the 6th ring, the figures illustrate.
How are those human bones? I don't see that as like clear as day. Like those are for sure some human bones. They look like squigglies. I don't see that as human bones, but we'll continue.
The fetus, which is symbolized as a plant with a bud. At birth, the flower will bloom. On ring 5, we see the newborn together with his parents, who are playing a board game. The fish in the left side is symbolizing the child striving towards the next stage in its life. On the 4th ring, we see a worker who is symbolized as a figure with an axe and a digging stick in his hands. These tools were quite common at the time for both men and women. The 3rd ring is depicting a ruler, which is symbolized with a human wheel. The idea behind this human wheel figure is when one ruler falls, another ruler will take its place.
So if this is bones down here, which I don't know that that's bones, and then you got like the flower thing is said, right? But see, now you got these, they're playing a board game here. It's just the growth and the evolution of man then, right? So you got the bone, which it might not be bones. It might just be like sperm. Maybe that's why it looked squiggly. Maybe it's the sperms. This would be the uterus, flower, and then here would be, growing up, playing games, right? Learning how to hunt, get food for your family. Up here would be like, maybe like, you're learning how to defend, fighting against warring tribes and whatnot. Obviously, just speculation. I'm no historian by any means, guys. So don't take what I say as fact. That's wrong.
The second ring is symbolizing the transition to the afterlife. Here we see a spirit riding on a horse to meet his goddess. At their arrival, it is greeted.
That's him being a warrior. He's defeated off the enemy tribe. Now he's celebrating. He's on his valiant horse with his arrow. He's got his queen right here.
With a horn filled with the elixir of life. Just like the long horn, there's been made many attempts to decipher the short horn.
Yeah, you can tell there was a ring or something right here. And probably, let's see, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this one has 6, 7 main rings. But then it has a bunch of these blank ones as well.
One of these attempts was made in 1969 by the same Willy Hartner as I mentioned before. Willy Hartner proposed that the figures were representing constellations, and he claimed that the images and symbols were referring to a lunar eclipse that happened on the 4th of November in 412, and it also depicted a solar eclipse on the 16th of April.
It could be constellations. Maybe that's why some of them are in dotted lines.
413. Finn Rasmussen has also written his thoughts about this short horn, and again, I like his interpretation the best. Just like before, I will not go into details on all the figures, since there are just too many, and the depth of the meaning will just take too long to explain. I have
Maybe we're interested in it though, Guy.
already talked about the meaning of the runes on this horn, so I will continue just below on the first ring. According to Finn Rasmussen, this first part represents the Germanic heaven. One of the figures that stood quite out notable to me was the figures with the horns.
Yeah.
These are the gods, and they are referred to as the divine twins. They are naked and have no sex, because gods does not need to have a certain sex. The helmets with the horns are meant to illustrate power and signalize the power of creation. The divine twin to the left is the god of life and growth, which is symbolized with the ring that symbolizes the circle of life, and a wand that symbolizes an object that will revive you and bring you back to life again. The twin also has a spear in its hand, which stands for strength and courage. The divine twin to the right is the god of death and harvest, which is symbolized by the sickle. Maybe the Grim Reaper that has been depicted many times in Christianity has its roots in old Germanic paganism.
Could be. Now, what's the circle thing? Is this like a shield that this guy's got?
The twin also uses a stick in the other hand to guide people through the realm of the dead. It is possible that the religious leaders of the society dressed up as the gods when they performed the rituals. There has been found helmets that look very similar in Denmark, dating back to the Bronze Age.
Yeah, those aren't horns though. But I mean, they are. They're not real horns though, right? Obviously, they're metal. But very interesting. And see, it's got these. How big are the tops of those horns? Because these have like a little thing here in a channel. I wonder if the golden horns would snap onto the end of these, possibly. But also, what is these? There's like a little thing here and a little thing here. Oh, like it looks like there was more stuff that went in there. Like right here. It looks like a screw or something screwed into that. I mean, they didn't have screws back then probably, but it just seems like those areas right there have a little like something supposed to go there. Very cool.
These helmets with horns were found at Växjö on Sjælland in Denmark, and they are estimated to date back to around 1000 BCE,
Jeez,
which would
that's
put
old.
them in the middle of the Bronze Age. However, if they were used at religious ceremonies or only as offerings at the bogs.
And they did a good job. Like, look how nice that is. Look how round and smooth those are. And like, how did they do that? 1000 BC? What is that? 3000 years ago? How in the world? Man, that's just really good craftsmanship. Like, outstanding. 3000 years old too.
Is something we can only speculate about today.
Crazy.
When the Germanic tribe known as Angles settled on the British Isles, they probably brought their culture with them, as people so often do. This tribe originated from what today is Denmark and Germany. But this area has mainly been part of the Danish territories throughout history.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure like Hamburg, Germany is in the northwestern part of Germany, close to Denmark. But it used to be part of the Danish kingdom, then Danish territory or whatever.
One of the reasons why I think they probably brought the culture with them is because of the helm that was found at the Suttonhoo ship monument that dates back to around the beginning of the 7th century. This is a replica of the helmet, and here you can see it more clearly.
Okay.
And the resemblance of the two twins is remarkably close to those that were depicted on the golden shorthorn from Gallehus. It is also possible that these ancient depictions of the divine twins refer to the two Vanir twins, Freya and Freya, who are the children of Injor in Norse mythology.
Children of who?
Who are the children of Injor in Norse mythology.
Inyo.
If true, then these gods and goddesses seem to get thousands and thousands of years older every time we discover new objects in the soil from our ancient ancestors. While the worship of the divine twins seems to have been common for all the Germanic tribes, and possibly also under different names from area to area, they were not gods that seem to have been particularly Germanic. The concept of the divine twins are also known in other cultures. The Romans were also familiar with them, something that can be seen on the wall paintings in the ruins of Pompeii in Italy. However, the names were not the divine twins to the Romans, but they were called Castor and Pollux. These two were twin half-brothers in both the Greek and the Roman mythology.
How you gonna be twin half-brothers? Okay.
The concept of the divine twins can also be found in Hinduism. Naya Narayan are two twin sage brothers, and they are to some devotees considered the fourth incarnation of Lord Vishnu.
Maybe back then, because twins are kind of rare, maybe back then twins were like held in high regard because they were rare. They thought that they were special or something. Who knows?
If there is a connection between neo-paganism and Hinduism, or if this is just a coincidence, is not something I can answer, and it would require a lot more research on the topic.
Yeah, it would. A lot more research.
But again, we should be careful not to read something into it.
Oh yeah, you start saying the wrong thing, religious, you're going to have a bunch of people coming after you, correcting your mistakes, for sure.
The two warriors are not the depictions of the common man. They are the leaders and the chieftains of the society. The sword was an expensive weapon, and only the people with vast amount of wealth could afford to purchase or have such a sword made. The two warriors are also equipped with a gold necklace, which was also a symbol of high status, and only something that has been found in graves of the leaders of their time. For those of you who have a keen eye, you might have noticed the symbol that looks very much like the Ægishjálmur symbol. This is a defense symbol, and it is supposed to strike fear into the hearts of the enemies, and thus protect you from any harm.
Nice. I've tattooed that symbol before. I used to be a tattoo artist. I've tattooed it on people.
If this is indeed this symbol, it raises another question, and that is, how old is this symbol really? And what does it mean in this context? According to Finn Rasmussen, the other 4 rings on the short horn depicts the same stages of life as the long horn. But unlike the images on the long horn that describes the behavior of the individual and their inner life, this short horn describes a stage of the human life, which he calls the giving force, the force of dedication, and the receiving force. You might have noticed that I was talking about these golden horns as something of the past, and that is unfortunate because in the darkness of the night on May 4th in 1802, the golden horns were stolen from the Royal Chamber of Art in Copenhagen. The next day, when the theft was discovered, there was put a huge reward of 1,000 rigsdaler in all the Danish papers to anyone who had some information that could lead to the arrestment of the thief.
Why'd they take they obviously got him back. There's pictures of him and stuff, so. And this looks really cool. This is, I'm assuming, somewhere in Denmark. I don't know what that round building is down there, but it looks pretty cool.
The thief, who would turn out to be a poor goldsmith and watchmaker by the name Niels Heidenreich, wiped out the golden horn's original appearance and their cultural importance when he one night melted them down and turned the gold into useless junk.
They're gone? So he did destroy them. So they got remakes based on the drawings. Is that what they did? They remade them based on the drawings, and the ones that we're seeing aren't the real ones. That's why they look so nice.
Original appearance and their cultural importance when he one night melted them down and turned the gold into useless junk.
Damn.
Niels tried to sell the earrings and the coins that he had made from the gold, but because he had mixed the coins with brass, he was eventually caught for fraud, which led him to confess where he had gotten the gold from.
So these are the ones made out of the horns. Very interesting.
Niels was sentenced and he spent the next 37 years in prison.
Jeez.
Today, we only know how the horns looked from drawings that were made between the 17th and the 18th century by Ole Worm and Pauli. And
Man, that is unfortunate.
because of this, we are a bit unsure of some of the details. If these horns were intended as drinking horns or blowing horns is simply something we do not know. Although, I think it is safe to say that these horns belong to someone with a massive amount of wealth or a very high status. However, there's no doubt that drinking horns were used for rituals by the Germanic tribes, and there has been found plenty of drinking horns in almost all graves of all the important people from this time period.
So they were found in the same sort of area. I would assume nobody just decided to leave them there, especially if they're valuable, and they probably were from somebody with a high status. They had to leave. I mean, they probably got in a fight. They had to dip out real quick. Something happened. And they didn't just leave them there on purpose, you know?
Julius Caesar also wrote about how the Germanic tribes hunted urox in the 1st century in order to get their hands on these horns.
Their horns differ very much from those of our oxen in size and shape and kind. The Germanic tribes collect them eagerly, encase their edges in silver, and use them as beakers at their most magnificent banquets. Julius Caesar.
Their horns differ very much from those of our oxen
I didn't know he was
in
going to read it.
size and shape and kind. The Germanic tribes collect them eagerly, encase their edges in silver, and use them as beakers at their most magnificent banquets. Since we do not have the originals, it is uncertain if the golden horns were curved or whether they had a winding helix-like curvature, like a
I'm assuming based on the drawings on the longhorn, the drawings where it was broken down into each level. So instead of him drawing them flat like that, the top was like that, but the bottoms on each drawing was curved up. So if you take the shape of that and then bring it into circles, right, and then string them all together, then that would naturally give it a curved shape. And that's just, again, based on the drawings that somebody made of the longhorns and the way that each layer was curved up at the bottom. Just completely suggests that it was a curved horn to me.
were curved or whether they had a winding helix-like curvature, like a natural ox horn. Besides the fact that they could have been used as drinking horns, we do also know that blowing horns were used both before and during the Viking Age, and they got
And it was probably a blowing horn because the bottom was open. How are you going to put liquid in it when it's open on both sides?
Heimdall is also known to have a horn which is called Gallehus. Heimdall is the god that guards the Rainbow Bridge, known as Bifrost, and he will use this horn
Rainbow
during
Bridge.
Ragnarok to warn all the gods and goddesses that the final battle has begun, and they should put on their war gear and gather their huge armies so they can travel to the battleground at Vigrid, where they will be meeting the Jotuns and the army of the dead. In 1861, 2 new replicas of the golden horns of Gallehus were made by the
Nice.
orders of Frederik VII of Denmark, who then donated them to the museum. However, these replicas were not in the right size and were also not curved as some of the archaeologists believe. In 1978, 2 additional copies were made, and these did have the right size and were also curved, to some of the researchers' satisfaction. In 1993, the 2 golden horns were stolen again, and this time from the Moesgaard Museum in Jutland. But they were
They're not even the real ones though, but they're gold, so they're going to steal them for the money, right?
recovered shortly after, because they were made of glittered brass and had no value beside the historical aspect.
Made of what?
They were made of glittered brass and had no value beside the historical
Glitter glad.
aspect.
Maybe that's like that fake gold stuff.
In the early morning on September 17 in 2007, replicas of these horns were stolen for a 3rd time. This time it was from a museum in the town of Jelling. These copies were made from glittered silver, but luckily for those of us who like history, they were recovered 2 days later on September 19. The Gallehus horns have inspired many artists throughout history, and they have been used in a wide range of designs, such as on porcelain figurines, cups, stamps, matchboxes, apple cider bottles,
What?
statues, drawings, paintings, and possibly also on the painting The Golden Horn by Theodor Kittelsen. If you want to see these gold horns for yourself, you can do so at the Danish National Museum in Copenhagen. There's also a copy at the Moesgaard Museum in northern Jutland, just outside the city of Aarhus. If you're unable to travel to Europe to see one of these replicas of the golden horns, you can see a copy if you are in the USA and go to the Juno Park in Milwaukee. Here there is a bronze sculpture of
Really?
Leif Eriksen that was created in 1887 by the artist Anne Whitney. In the right hand, Leif is holding one of these golden horns from Gallehus.
Very cool. Milwaukee, huh? That's probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 hour drive for me. I can get to Chicago in about, I don't know, 2.5 or 3 hours. And then I think Milwaukee's probably another hour or so north of there. I might check this out sometime. Not anytime soon, but that might be on my list, possibly.
There's another replica of this bronze sculpture in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay,
at the
Boston.
Commonwealth Avenue at Charlesgate East. I hope you like.
Now, Massachusetts is certainly farther away than Milwaukee is for me.
Like the video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up.
Well, that was the golden horns of Gallehus. I pronounced it wrong the first time. Gallehus. All right, so shout out to Dolly for that priority request. If you want to make your own priority request, links are down in the description section for that. Hit like, hit subscribe while you're down there. Have a super fun, awesome day, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, take care.